Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations, continuing on with our ACF Ultimate series, specifically with the combat sub-series of everything we're doing. So for this episode, we're going to briefly be going over a particular type of item, and it is the melee weapon. So that does require us to go into the items section just a little bit, but we're only doing enough to understand the melee weapon. A lot of it works with the ranged weapon too, but there is an additional component to look out for with the ranged weapon. But today, just melee. So, as you can see here, we have two swords. This is the sword used with the project. And then this one I got from a free pack. There's a free weapons pack that you can find on the marketplace that has, swords, daggers, scythe, shield, hammers, fist weapons, more hammers, halberds and axes, all that jazz. So that's what I'm using for this to show off how this works. So within the weapon, you have the ability, let's open this up, to change. I should have scrolled all the way down to this before. To change the rotation of the weapon. And the reason that is there is that sometimes, let's see. One second. Couldn't see it for some reason. In ACF weapon, there's the attachment offset so that you can change this if you need to. So that no matter what, when it's on the body and in the hands, it's positioned correctly. But I don't like doing it that way because sometimes the hand socket isn't exact. I've run into issues before. It's very much a good method to do it, but it does require you to, adjust these, hit play, see how it looks, and then stop and adjust some more. The way I like to do it, I like to make sure that everything in my project is uniform as far as meshes go, especially if they're going to be attached to sockets. So this is how the static mesh is set. As you can see here, the pivot point's down here. Blue is up as per usual. See, blue is still up, but the pivot point's way up here. So if I were to rotate the sword so it was facing the same way, blue would be pointing down. And that's just not how we're going to do things. Yeah. So I'm going to show you how to alter it using a couple of plugins. If it's already a static mesh, then you don't have to do the first step, but regardless, you would need to do all the steps at some point or another within your projects, because sometimes when you get a weapon, it does not already come as a skeletal mesh. So those plugins you need to make sure you have. First, we're going to type skeletal. So you want to make sure you have the skeletal mesh editing tools, excuse me. And then the modeling tool editor mode, you need to make sure that is turned on as well. Obviously, you'll need to restart your project. And once the project is started back up, we can start with the magic. Now, first things first, because this is a sword skeleton, a skeletal mesh. I think that's what I have here. Let me check. Oh, nope, I pulled out the skeleton. Glad I looked. We're going to come over here to this bad boy. The first thing we're going to do is we got to turn this into a just a regular static mesh. And you can do that regardless of the plugins that I turned on. Just in case you were curious, you just come up here to Actor and let's see, convert SK sword to static mesh. So I'm going to create a folder here in tutorials called meshes. And then I'm going to name this sword static mesh. Save. Fantastic. Here it is. So I can bring this into the world. As you can see, it looks practically identical. I'm going to get rid of the skeletal mesh here. Now the next thing we need to do is open up the modeling tool. So here in the selection mode, well, in the modes, I should say, you want to come down here to modeling. Once you have that selected, make sure you have what you're going to be changing selected, because we are changing the pivot point. We are changing how this whole thing is set up so that it will work regardless throughout your entire project. So we go to this X form right here, select transform. So first we're going to change this by 180. So now it's at 0. And then we're going to rotate this by 90. There we go, negative 90. So now we have it facing exactly the same way because it's two-sided instead of just one-sided. So either way works. But we're not complete. The next thing we need to do is, as you can see right here, it's still pointing down. We need to hit complete, and then do bake transform, hit accept, and look at that. It's been turned around, and this is now permanent. If I pull it out, it's exactly where it needs to be. Perfect. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is I've gone ahead and, what did I do with them? There they are. So I have that right here. I'm going to go here into blueprints. Remember, do as I say, not as I do. So don't drag this in. Right click, create a child to place it in here, or move it so you can re-download the sample stuff later. But I'm going to utilize the new stuff that comes with the additional plugin that Pask is providing for those who wish to purchase it. So if I come in here to ACF inventory, and I come down here to weapons, I can choose melee weapon, and I'm looking for ACF sword BP. Hit OK. Look at that. I can do ACF, and I'm going to do tutorial sword underscore BP. And now, as you can see, it looks identical. We're going to change that though. I'm going to close this because I don't want to accidentally utilize it. I'm going to go back to where my sword is, but I can't use it there yet. And that's fine. First, let's go ahead and save it. Next thing we are going to do, because it is now ready, right click, because of the skeletal mesh plugin that we have, we can now convert to skeletal mesh. If you're like me, Pask does it as well. You would have a single skeletal mesh for most of your weapons, because for most of the weapons, all you need is the start and end sockets. We don't have it in the sample, and I'm not going to go through that process now, so we're going to create new. So now it has a skeletal mesh and a skeleton. Perfect. So now it fits. Look at that. All shiny, new, and looks great. I'm going to remove these from the world. All right, so now the first thing we need to do before we forget is, if you come here to the collision component, and you come down to traces, damage traces, let me make this bigger here. Here we go. You can name this whatever you want. It does serve a purpose, and we'll touch that down the road. Right here, start socket, end socket. You can change these if you want to, or you can keep it simple and keep them how they are. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So now I know it's start and end. Uppercase and lowercase, it needs to be identical. So let's go to our skeleton here. We're going to right click on the root, add socket. Right click on the root. There we go, add socket. So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to hit F2, name this one start with a capital S. I'm going to click this next one, F2, and capital E end. Save. Now, these two and these two are connected. So now when combat is happening, it knows how to where to turn on the collision trace. So let's hit compile and save. While we are here, a couple other things we need to make sure you are aware of, and we will touch over this more heavily soon. I just want to make sure you know it's there. Here in the weapons, this is what determines your move sets and all of that stuff, and which socket each thing is attached to. Like I said, we will be going over all of this heavily once we get into items for the sockets, and heavily once we create our first weapon moveset, which we are going to do with this sword. So to make sure it's all working fine and dandy, we need to come into our character, and then you need to find the equipment and inventory. And here's their ACF sword. I'm going to replace this one with my tutorial sword. Compile, save. I'm going to hit play. Look at that. There's my shiny new sword. It's working as it should. And it works. Fantastic. So that's a quick, brief overview of weapons. We will be going over that stuff more heavily once we get to the items section of our tutorial series. But for now, I'm just trying to make sure you guys understand the quick, dirty, and easy way of getting a new weapon set up and a new move set set up. After that stuff's all done, then we'll worry about understanding the nuances of each. All right, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. Please make sure you like and subscribe. If you would like to donate, you can always buy me a coffee or join my Patreon. Have a great day.